Hey, good morning, Rich here with Summit Life Group. So, what is your ROI on leads for your business? I know sometimes people ask that. What should the ROI look like? What should the return on investment look like as it relates to investing in leads for your life insurance business? And it's hard to give you an exact number because it does vary by every individual. What's your skill level? What's your effort level? What's your product niche? What is the leads you're working, your system? So it really does vary, but there's one thing that I think relates to almost all agents that I think can be helpful, especially if you're not yet producing at a high level, because this is a common theme that I've seen with life insurance agents, and that is measuring your ROI on too short of a time frame. For example, I love investing in businesses and equities and stocks, but I can't tell you how many times I've made an investment into a stock, but 1 year later, for example, the have a negative return, right? But where it's actually worth less than it was when I made that investment. However, you fast forward after 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, and you have an incredible return. Just like the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett, he invests with a 50-year or even ideally a lifetime time frame. Well, that gives him such an advantage over everybody else who typically has a much shorter time frame that they're measuring. You say, what does that have to do with our business? And it really has a lot to do. It doesn't mean you should be measuring on a 10-year time frame. Of course you shouldn't. But I think most agents take too short of a time frame when they're measuring their ROI. And I see this all the time. I think a lot of it is because a lot of people find their way to our industry out of a place of maybe desperation and not having a lot of runway. And so what happens is people invest some money in themselves, and then they're desperate to get that ROI back, so they can keep going. But it causes sometimes people to really take a too short of a measurement. And so again, it's going to vary. Typically speaking, the larger the ticket item that you're selling, the longer the sales cycle is, the longer time frame that you need to have. But as a general rule, what I find is that you need to measure your ROI on a 45 day minimum, 45 day, but really I like even longer than that, 60 days, to really and truly measure. So what does that mean? If you invest $2,000 in your marketing, in your business, to try to measure your ROI 1 week later is just not fair. It's not fair to any investment, really. And that's typically how agents, especially if they're desperate, is they start making assessments about how good that particular investment is after only a couple days or after only a week. And so, but here's what I'll tell you: it oftentimes, if you look at it, in other words, if you invest $2,000, if you look at the actual ROI, the actual commissions earned 45 days later or even 60 days later, it looks totally different than if you're measuring it at the 2 week mark. Just yesterday, had an agent that sold a very great policy, a large policy that was from marketing spend from 60 days prior, and the commission off of that sale may not hit for another couple weeks, right? So when you look at it, his ROI, the return on that investment, really drastically changed after 70 or 80 days, almost 3 months from the time the initial marketing lead purchase was made. And so what I challenge you to do is lengthen your time frame when you're measuring your ROI. Too many people, what happens when we measure in too short of a time frame is we don't stick to it to even experience what the true ROI is, because what a lot of agents will do is start something, but because they panic, because they get desperate, because they think the ROI is not there, they then pivot again to a new strategy, and they're constantly pivoting. And it's the same way people will make an investment, right? And then they'll get scared and get out of the investment and go to something else, right? Versus the Warren Buffett, right? They take a long-term approach. And that's what you find with top producers, is they're willing to make an investment and give themselves a longer term horizon. I'm not saying it needs to take years, but give yourself a couple months to, if you're going to truly measure your ROI, because 1 week is just not enough. And so I challenge you to lengthen it wherever you feel like you are. Just stretch yourself a little bit to allow yourself time, particularly if you're selling a larger ticket item. But even on smaller ticket sales, it's still, you're going to continue to make sales on that marketing, on that lead investment. So lengthen the time that you measure your ROI, and I really believe it will help you in your business. So, hey, Summit Life Group, we train and support independent life insurance agents nationwide. So if you're looking for a place to make home that you can work with, especially if you want to sell remotely over the phone, fill out the link to learn more. But even if you're not, click and subscribe to the channel. We want to provide lots of value to independent life insurance agents, whether you work with Summit Life Group or not. So I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day.